Hello, I'm Damski, and we are right here at ETHPrague with dcbuilder from DevPil. Welcome, DC. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing great. Recently just got to the conference for the second day, and excited to talk to different people from the ecosystem, listen to the talks, and excited also for our interview today.
So for starters, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your project, DevPil?
Okay. So I'm dcbuilder. I got into the space like 3 to 4 years ago, and the reason why I got interested in the space was because I wanted to learn sort of how finance works. That's like why the first I got interested in crypto. I was like learning mathematics at the time, and I saw this like cool video about blockchains and how they work, and I saw a lot of potential for the future. And I feel like that inspired me to sort of start learning more. And eventually I discovered there's like a whole world of applications that live on top of this. And so I tried exploring different areas and learning about those. I wrote a few articles about different areas such as L2s or Ethereum core and things like that. And now I'm sort of trying to also give back all of the value that I feel like I've been given by the community and by the ecosystem. So I created this resource called devbuild.me, which is a public good blockchain development guide. So essentially, it's a resource where any developer with different technical backgrounds or even with no technical background can go through and they can see different areas that they can learn about more within the area of developing on top of blockchains, whether it's to learn like smart contract development, backend development, or smart contracts themselves. There's also like a few sections in the works, things like working on top of building on top of Starknet, the L2 ZK rollup built by the Starkware team, and a few other sections. So it's in essence it's a resource that's made for developers to learn more about building on top of the ecosystem.
When you mentioned Starkware and this whole basically ecosystem, what do you think is the main difference between, let's say, Cairo and Solidity?
So I guess is like the biggest difference is the maturity of the ecosystem. Solidity has been around since pretty much the beginning of Ethereum, like 2015-ish, and Cairo is a much more recent language. So Cairo was created as a as a language that's able to be compiled and run inside of a zero-knowledge proving system, and this also has its limitations in some regards, but also allows you to do some other things which you cannot do on top of the EVM or like Solidity. So I guess like the biggest difference for you as a developer is that's also more low level. So you need to sort of understand a few things about the constraints you have because you're on top of a ZK system, and a few like technical nuances of the ecosystem, and it's less mature, so you also have to sort of rely on maybe like less well-tested libraries, or maybe you have to create libraries yourself for certain things, whereas on Solidity you would use some like standard libraries and then just do some code yourself. So it depends for what you're using, but I feel like maturity is like the biggest difference at this point in time, but also a lot of potential for the future.
Rolling back to the DevPil project, the project of yours, when you describe it as a public good of blockchains in a way, so it is mainly for, let's say, EVM compatible blockchains, or is it like a guide for if you want to make some different blockchain?
Yeah, so me personally, like what I have most knowledge about is for EVM blockchains. If I had to focus on other ones, I feel like the quality of the guide wouldn't be as good. So me personally, I focus on EVM blockchain specifically. But the public good part just means that I do it out of my own free time and I don't get paid for it directly. So I created a grant for it on Gitcoin, and I got a few ecosystem grants from people like Starkware to build this guide, but I don't get paid for it. So like, and the guide is free, so free and open source. So anyone can edit, can submit a pull request to the GitHub repo. Anyone can sort of contribute or fork it, like deploy their own version with different content if they want to do something else. So yeah, that's like the public good part. And what was the other question?
Well, basically, if it is usable for example, other blockchains, but
No,
that's
no,
basically
no,
answered
yeah,
by yeah.
it's not.
What do you think are the future trends of, let's say, cryptocurrencies in general? Because we could see some waves of DAOs or, let's say, NFTs or DeFi. What do you think is next?
I feel like right now we're in a cleansing period. A lot of the low value add projects are dying down because people are not throwing money at them anymore. So I feel like right now the people are sort of trying to think about new use cases, new possibilities. There's also going to be an explosion of block space. People are going to have cheap block space available, so there will be a new wave of applications which will be able to leverage this block space. And since you are less constrained, you can create more resource-intensive applications. So I feel like a few of the applications that weren't able to be built on blockchains before because of like resource constraints are going to be more affordable. And so economies of scale will also like help with that. So more users will like drive more demand. Now they have more block space to fit that demand. New applications can emerge. The same thing happened with the internet. Like once you had broadband, maybe video streaming became a possibility. So like platforms like YouTube emerged. Before it wasn't possible. So I think like we'll have that sort of moment on blockchains. And apart from that, there's like a bunch of different experiments in different areas. So I feel like maybe like the zero knowledge area, a lot of people are building applications that are private. So maybe privacy may be a trend. Depends on the users, but I feel like on top of like for the builders, privacy is becoming a more interesting trend. Or there's like other trends more for builders that rather than users and applications. There's a lot of cool new DeFi primitives. A lot of people experimenting with public good funding for different platforms for with different mechanisms. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things that are happening in space.
Rolling back to the privacy section that might, for example, appear more in the space, I believe cryptography and ZK technology is very tied up to this. So what effect had basically cryptography and ZK on the Web2 world? Yeah, can you see some implications of that?
Yeah. So the Web2 world started adopting cryptography sort of as a need to protect users' data and like different things. But governments used to push back against cryptography a lot because they were like, oh, now all of these bad actors in the space, like people that steal money or people that do various nefarious things in the world, will be able to communicate privately without the government having access to their communications. So the internet in the beginning was like pushing back. Mark Andreessen from what now is Andreessen Horowitz or A16Z. He co-founded Mosaic and like all of these the early browser ecosystem and a lot of these libraries in the beginning. So I feel like he struggled a lot with governments to sort of push privacy forward. I feel like we're struggling with privacy now as well because now they're like, oh, it's tied up directly to money, not only communication. So these people, these nefarious actors, will be able to sort of transact in a completely private manner. Or at least with a lot more privacy than they used to be before. But I feel like this is always like weighing out the pros and cons, and generally privacy has always given a lot more value to society than it has taken. So I feel like it's going to happen the same thing is going to happen in the Web3 world, where private transactions and like all of these primitives are going to become building blocks that will be essential for the new wave of applications. So yeah, that's my opinion on the space right now in terms of privacy.
If we look at the Web3 space or cryptocurrency space in general, what is the biggest challenge that we are facing in this basically area? Can I even answer this in the development part of the Web3?
Yeah. I feel like I'll first answer in the more general sense. I feel like we have a legitimacy issue in the space. A lot of people think that several projects or applications are legitimate just because people talk about them or people have a lot of marketing for them, or there's maybe like a lot of value spent on propagating a certain idea. But the project underneath all of that is not maybe as legitimate from a technological perspective or from like a value add perspective. To give an example, like personally, I just feel like this about things like Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or like EVM forks, like old EVM forks like Tron, or like all these things that are still alive for some reason. I feel like we should be very careful about what we give legitimacy to. if we want to create a better world, we should try to avoid to give legitimacy to other things, and we need to have more open conversations about the pros and cons of different things, because you also don't want to censor people from like, oh, I think this is better, but I may not have the understanding that why it's not better, right? So like you cannot also like censor the Dogecoin people or the Shiba Inu people, like, yo, your project doesn't make a lot of sense, because like they maybe want to build something like that, but they maybe don't know how to do that. So it's also good to sort of approach the people building those in a more open manner and try to discuss like what's the potential. It's just like try to be more focused on giving legitimacy to the right things to move forward, and be like the people that have the knowledge should spread more knowledge about what they think is the right thing.
Sure, I can definitely see a pattern where we can see different projects every year spawning and basically making new wave of retail getting totally smashed by them, because all those projects are basically in a way pump and dump. And I think we need to really make a better job in actually educating the people about that and making them know what is actually bringing the value to the crypto space and whatnot. So if we look at the crypto space in general, what do you think has changed in the last years, and what do you think we are like heading into in the next couple 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I feel like we've grown a lot. In the past, there's this uncertainty whether we'd survive. I feel like we're past that point. I feel like even if a lot of things go to zero, the ideas are still remaining, and the ideas are sort of embodied in a lot of people nowadays. So I feel like even if like you strip away all of the money side of things, people always try to sort of build something similar. Even like if like all current systems die, people will try to like make it reborn. That I think like is the biggest difference from the past. That now we're too big to fail in a way, as in like too big to not so that we don't create these primitives anymore, or we don't care about these things anymore. Because in the past there was like, oh, maybe if we collapse now, it's just over for us. Maybe it's just like there's no people interested in our space. There's no people coming in. I feel like there's a lot of we convinced many people in the world about the possibilities, and I feel like we convinced a lot of the right people, and not a lot of the right people are deploying their resources for building the right things. And yeah, so I feel like that's the biggest difference currently.
Wrapping up with last question for you. When we are talking about learning and educating people and making it a very important issue in the ecosystem, can you, or do you have a specific book or a magazine, maybe a podcast or tool or something that you would recommend to people who want to continue their learning?
So currently, I've been listening to a lot of episodes from the Zero Knowledge podcast, hosted by Anna Rose from the ZK Validator team. She has a lot of co-hosts like Tarun and a lot of very smart people, and I feel like that podcast has the best people on the podcast, and there's a lot of cutting edge knowledge that is shared, a lot of new interesting research questions in a lot of different fields. The questions are on point. It's sort of, I feel like it's the podcast that helps me sort of push myself the most, because like whenever I hear something, there's a lot of resources as well in the notes of each episode, and I can go dive deeper into any specific topic. And yeah, I feel like that one is great if you want to learn and you want to push yourself in different areas and learn more about the core technological primitives that are underlying the space. So yeah, I'll definitely recommend the Zero Knowledge podcast.
Thanks for this amazing tip, and definitely thank you for joining this short interview, DC, and we will see you at the next one.
Thank you very much. See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.